A good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. Would you leave it to chance? Join the authors of Design to Change and explore this series of conversations with designers and event owners. Driven by the need and conversations with event owners and event designers who use the event canvas around the world, this series explores the depths of conversations to elevate your abilities to look and act beyond the now. Episodes are hosted by Ruud, Janssen, Rolf Friesen, Dennis Lehrer, and Paul Rukens, with illustrious changemakers, designers, and pioneers in the field of design and beyond. To explore these conversations and additional content, visit designtochange.online. For now, let's start the conversation.
Conversations.
All right. Welcome back to the Design to Change podcast. I'm super delighted to have somebody back that hasn't been on the podcast for over 3.5 years. Julius Solaris, a name that everybody in the events industry must recognize, and if they don't, they should look you up. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ruud. It's been a while, but I'm excited to catch up with you.
Absolutely. Last time we spoke was at IMEX America in 18th of October, 2022, which was quite a turbulent time, I remember. And here we are back at the microphone together.
And back in turbulent times as well.
In the backdrop, people will see Bold Push, right? A brand that you have launched back in the day. This was, I think it was in April 22, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, yeah.
And I remember those exciting first hours. Now, 3 years and 10 months into the game. I'm delighted to catch up with you. The first question we ask all of our guests, and for those of you that have never met Julius Solaris, you probably have read some of his work. Over the years, he's become a prolific event consultant and creator. He shares insights on events, marketing, and technology. This is what you would read on his LinkedIn, by the way. He does so much more. He's translated in the Event Design Handbook into multiple languages. Here is Julius with the introduction remarks in the Event Design Handbook, which might seem Chinese to many. I'm going to open with the opening page of the Design to Change book, Julius, a question we've asked you before. And the question that we ask you is, a good conversation can determine the direction of change forever. Would you leave it to chance?
Correct. Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't. Yeah, if I think about my work today, it is based on conversations. That's what I do. I mean, that's what I do on a daily basis, whether it's with my clients, whether it's online on LinkedIn, whether it's through direct messages and emails. It is just like, moving air through means of conversations. And so being intentional about these conversations is what makes a difference, right? What is creating that impact. And so I think a lot about the conversations that I have these days more than ever, being a little bit more out there than I used to be. And I've always been kind of out there in terms of being a little bit more public with my opinions and what I think about the industry. Today, I have I pay even more attention to the conversations that I have, to who I have them with, and whether they're prolific to myself and the person in front of me, whether I can add value, whether they can be valuable to me. That's for sure. And that second element is kind of a new thing for me. In the past, I was just obsessed about creating value for others, and that was it. I'm thinking more about also getting something back, is taking care of ourselves. I guess that's becoming top of mind for me as well.
Absolutely. If conversations are the infrastructure for change, right? So most, just as a provocative statement, most change initiatives fail, not because of bad ideas, but because the wrong conversations happen at the wrong time, or maybe they don't happen at all, right? If you look at that, you consult with a lot of different types of companies, especially in the events industry, and behavior changes are currency, which creates value, right? You said so in 2016 when we published the Event Design Handbook. You said, the way we create events is broken. And potentially, right, 10 years later, where are we today, 10 years after this? Are events still broken or have we fixed them?
Well, if you think about like my start specifically, which I think, probably it's a few years later than yours, in 2007 or so. So even 10 years before the 2016 intro to your book, I already started with Events Are Broken. And so that was like actually my main driver for the first sort of content creation efforts that I did through being a blogger at the time and having that opinion that, I mean, for the most part was misinformed and ill-informed. That is just logical because I was coming out of nowhere in Italy, very young out of university without understanding of a lot of dynamics. But honestly, like I kind of perceived something that wasn't there for younger generations, whether it was the use of technology or anything that was like upset. Where was access? I was very upset about access at the time, specifically, and being just fresh out of my MBA, I was so frustrated with the fact that I wanted to talk more about events and like all the information was gated and inaccessible. I couldn't afford it, and so I took it upon myself to make it affordable and accessible. Actually, not affordable; it was free. So that sort of then the next 10 years have been interesting, and then from 2016 to today, well, I think a lot of the change, we had to go through change. So it wasn't like a conscious decision, right? We kind of had to deal with change. And I think what is pushing a lot of the changes today that are, undisputably sort of happening within the industry. There are some changes that are happening, right? Now, we can have a conversation on whether these changes are intentional or not, whether they're forced by, using a contract term, force majeure here, and we're sort of reacting to COVID or then to whatever the political environment it is today, or the strong inflation or economic macro environment, or whether we want to pursue change. I think it's more of the former than the latter, and I think that still a lot of the misconception about the industry are alive and well, and a lot of how we perceive, without generalizing, because there's a lot of great people doing great things, and I met a ton of those. But overall, I look at the industry overall. You have to think, my content has gone to reach 11 million people last year. I responded manually to thousands of comments. I read every single comment. And so we did research as well. So I'm also lucky to have this sort of bird's eye view on the industry. And I see the same patterns again and again. This is why I kind of go around annoying people and saying, well, I mean, is it really change? Or are we just, surviving? That's kind of the question we should ask ourselves. Do I have an answer to that? I don't want to sort of be as arrogant to say that I do have an answer.
So if you think about, you took away the moat around the castle of access to the information in the first, episode, as you mentioned it, when you were a content creator avant la lettre, if you will, right? Where providing access to the information was so important. Now you're responding to a lot of the conversation that gets sparked by the research you do, by the consolidated information you put out, right? You have a plethora of templates and tools and research and documents that people can access through Bolt Push. Do you think the design versus accidental conversations that happen as a result of a piece of publication that you do, and you get comments on it, and you go into a conversation, is that accidental or is that design, do you think, those conversations?
I think like a lot of operators in the events industry are feeling that they need to change something, right? So they're feeling that whatever they've been doing is not working anymore. And it's increasingly more difficult to make it work. And on the other end, they're also faced with extreme job uncertainty. I've seen a lot, especially like those of our generation and the past 10 years, which is not, I would say, structurally our generation. I feel they're feeling the heat. They've been let go without any specific reason, and so there's a lot of shock in the industry. And I feel a lot of the conversations that are out there are a reaction to that. There's a missing link still for me in terms of intentionality. And let me take a second to break it down with your audience here. What does that mean? I think there's a difference in our industry between those that download a template and do something with it, those that buy your book and actually put it to action instead of like looking at it on the library shelf. Even the clients that I work with, I see the difference between those that, after a year I catch up with them and they're saying, well, we're still implementing the recommendations we work on together. And those that are like, yeah, this is not for us. And then unfortunately, I see kind of also the cycle of that mentality that is not linked to me working with them or, the consulting per se, but it's like a mental attitude of not believing that that is a way that can spark new ways. I'm not saying this is my way or that your book is like the way. I don't think there is a way. Every event is different. Every environment is different. Every country is different. And so I don't I don't have the crystal ball. Well, actually, Ruud, I have the crystal ball. But, for those that are not watching, I do actually have a crystal ball prop because they told me about it so many times that I had to get it as a prop. But what I'm trying to say here is, I feel that action and intention make a difference in this industry. And in an industry that is like very hands-on, very operation-driven, made of people that make things happen, in this context today where who's our competitor? Our competitor is AI and social media right now as an industry. And so if we don't do well, then we're going to be sucked into everything else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So with that being the case, right? And I was recently listening to the head of McKinsey, one of those prolific consultancy companies that, charge an arm and a leg for big change initiatives. And they were dissecting, what is the success factor between people that, make it to the top of these organizations in consulting on change versus those that don't. Interestingly enough, one of the core observations there that they had through longitudinal research was that only those that had faced significant setbacks during their careers or at some personal inflection point built the resilience to be able to actually overcome new learnings and remain curious, and reinvention being built into their resilience pattern, so to say, that was a big distinguishing factor. Now, in your, and this is maybe more of a, if we zoom out of because you started, kind of your story in terms of, going from, show themes and building Event NB, which you sold to Skift, right? And then you went through a whirlwind of activity with Swapcard and Hopin, and then you started Bold Push. There's a lot of learning that you've acquired over time in different circumstances. Which of these, let's say, and if you look at the conversations that you were having with yourself or with your colleagues at the time, which of these episodes taught you most about the types of conversation you're having today?
It's a great question. Well, I feel that I learned a lot about our industry by being in many different roles, right? I've been a commentator, media person. I've been kind of an event tech entrepreneur, even if it's an exaggeration probably because we were talking about WordPress themes, but I was working with a developer daily to develop functionality that was beyond sort of web design, right? So pretty complex non-AI stuff at the time, so pretty technical as well. Then I've been working with event tech companies on a marketing capacity in-house. And then as a consultant today, still work with a lot of event tech companies. We work with 18 in the past 3-4 years between media projects and positioning, marketing projects, and trade shows, associations, and a lot of corporate clients. And so there's no universal way of looking at events. So what that has taught me is that whoever has a strong opinion about events and they say this is what should happen, they're clearly wrong by the way they're proposing their argument, because there's no universal truth. I see that pattern again and again when I go out with a piece of research and I see someone in the comments saying, oh, but like we're experiencing exactly the opposite. I don't question the fact you're experiencing, I embrace it. But again, doing research, then you have overall patterns and you try to steer a direction, a trend, right, as we call it.
Yeah.
So what I learned, what was the experience that taught me the most? No universal truth. By sort of summing up all of the experiences, looking at clients and then suppliers, and then being a supplier, being a media commentator, being an analyst, no universal truth. But I feel that what is teaching me the most these days is being next to clients, for sure. I would say that doing the work from a consulting perspective with companies, we usually my Zoom calls, they have 10, 15 people on the other end. So there's a bunch of people that have been in the industry for like 15 to 25 years. And so it's not like they started yesterday. And so, it's extremely demanding, extremely keeping me focused on what matters today, helps me to skim a lot. It's teaching me a lot on all of the fluffy conversations that are out there that are not necessarily relevant, that do not advance the industry. For example, I've been banging quite a lot recently on the prominence and the priority of ROI for business events. And I feel that, I'm embracing that voice, because again, there's no conversation about emotion, belonging in any of my client calls. Zero. I mean, yes, they start thinking about it later, and it's very important. I never diminish the importance of that. That's what events are about, the human connection. But if we're looking at business events, the priority is a different one. And if that priority is not respected, I've seen these people being laid off again and again and again. And so from a protectionist standpoint, I try to protect my people as much as possible, to share information that is going to be helpful for them. I think shifting the attention to what really matters. Then how you get to ROI, we can have a conversation about that, right? It can be non-conventional, very human ways of getting there, but we need to get there. I question people that all of a sudden take it away. And they say, no, it's not important. I don't subscribe to that. So that's the biggest learning that I've had in the past 2 years specifically.
Well, I think that's an important point, because when you are the consultant in a group of 10, 15 people, you are like an external set of ears listening to the actual conversations taking place. We have the saying that we keep saying over and over again, show me an organization's event and I'll tell you about their culture, right? Have you been able, because you go to a lot of events and you document them and you make these really flashy, cool, videos, and, you've got a whole team kind of doing that, or at least you make it look like that.
No, it's just the two of us. That's fine.
It's amazing what you can do with a couple of talented people, right? But now you go to a lot of these events and you report on them and you kind of look at the highlights, etc. Do you think you can read the culture by going to events? And if so, how would you describe the culture of events beyond ROI?
That's a great question again. Finally, I'm getting some great questions in a podcast here. I'm just sorry. I should have not said that. You can cut it.
No worries. We don't cut. We just go straight.
I know. So yeah, no shame, and to other podcasters doing great. But I always like when we're not talking about, what's trending in the industry, stuff like that. Yeah. I feel that, Yeah, absolutely. Completely different cultures. It starts with me reaching out. Sometimes these projects are paid for media, so they're sponsored, and obviously that's one aspect. And there's like,
Yeah.
there's a narrative, and there's, as much as I don't make it about promoting anything really. I mean, I'm always, even with my media projects, I'm like, if you even try to sort of instill some talking points, or like having me doing commercials, let's close it here, because I'm not going to
Hopeless.
do that. Exactly. So
Not going to happen.
people know, like, my clients have PTSD of working with me, I guess, because I'm so intense and like so protective of the fact that I'm not going to go out doing anything that is not valuable. Like, even when I'm doing those, I share. But even within like client work, you can tell there's some events that literally genuinely want to do something different and want to broadcast it to the community. And there are some events that are just concerned about amplifying whatever it is. And sometimes when you ask it, okay, what are we going to amplify? Well, they don't know. And so I'm there to try to find it. What is that we can amplify? You can see on some of the videos that I've done that I'm really pushing it to find something there, because there's nothing much to say. On some other, in some other cases, when it's an organic attendance, and so there's no sponsor, I'm just going there because I want to go there and share it with the world. Like CES.
It's like an expedition that you take on.
Yep. Like
you're an explorer, you go and explore.
Yeah, I spend the budget. I bring a videographer. Sometimes I shoot it myself without a videographer. So if you take CES, Inbound, Dreamforce, that's been out of pocket. And you can tell the difference between events, right? There's some events that are very welcoming. They want you to be there. Maybe we don't have a partnership, we don't have advertising, but the teams are so involved. This is the case of what's going to happen in March with South by Southwest, where we're about to announce a partnership with them. But there's not commercial per se, but they're so embracing of the first video that I did organically last year there, that we're going to go back, and they're richly working with us to display the things that they're doing. In this case, obviously, there's not going to be any convention center, so a lot of change, right? A lot of new ways.
Completely different beast this time,
right?
Yeah.
So exciting that they want to share what they've been planning with the community. Yeah. And at some events where I reached out, nobody answered. I had to buy a ticket and just go by myself. Obviously, I couldn't bring a videographer, just like intruding and taking shots. Maybe once I was on the floor, somebody recognized me and we started a conversation. To the level of some other events where I've been contracted to be at, where I had been escorted in and out because they didn't want me to shoot anything. In the industry specifically, that happens. So industry events. So yeah, that's like the different levels from those embracing it, those that reach out for help. Julius, let us uncover what is happening here because we don't know. Mm-hmm. So to those that don't want me to be around. So it's a level of intention. Is like, you can tell in some cases there's the intention to share with the community. Sometimes, look great in the face of the community. Why not? Yeah. But there's something behind it that it goes beyond. It's like really pushing it and say, we want to do something and we want to be recognized for that. And I think I give them a platform to showcase, which has been missing, which has been limited to pictures in Biz Bash of activations, which is great. But I think today we can tell better stories of that.
Yeah. So if any event owners listening to this, or event designers or event managers that are part of events, that kind of their ears go up and they get excited about this option, maybe they haven't thought about having somebody explore the front and the back of their event designs and have a look at through a different lens to expose it to a much broader world. This is your opportunity to reach out to Julius and get yourself some clout. Let me flip the question on you, Julius, because you've been to so many different events. Now you're partnering with South by Southwest. I see you kind of hovering to all the main events kind of that people would recognize in the industry. Are there any events that you haven't been to that are like super high on your wish list, where you were
Totally.
like, oh, I wish the phone rang today, or, I would get a message from this organizer because I'm dying to dissect their event and kind of, get an inside scoop of it. Are there any on that list that are currently on your horizon of change where you're like, yeah, let's make that happen?
Totally. Like the stakes are getting higher, obviously, because I'm crossing off a lot of like bucket list items. I've been lucky enough to do a few of those. And
Yeah.
so stakes are getting higher. I feel that my objective is to branch out a little bit from business and go into iconic events a
Yeah.
little bit more. And to be honest, like my ideal scenario is to be behind the scenes as well and have someone from the team that comes with me and tells me all the, whatever is happening in the background so I can talk more about the events, not just observe it, but actually having knowledge to say things better for the industry. And so, it is 2026 World Cup. If I can be at the FIFA World Cup, and on the final of the World Cup, yeah, that would be awesome, right? Obviously
I
being
feel some
European.
ulterior motive there too.
I
It's
mean, to be honest, we're not even going to qualify being Italian here. Probably we're going to be doing with my American citizenship here than my Italian dual citizenship. So I feel that, the World Cup, the Olympics, those are the ones that I want to look at. Davos, I've never been there at WEF. There's some media events that I want to be at, that I want to attend, Semaphore and New York Times Deal Book. Then there's Ken Lyon, which probably this year is going to happen. So that's been on my bucket list as well. What other events that give me major FOMO? The Oscars. I will always want it to be at the Oscar ceremony in the back end and see things happening there and what's going on. Some other iconic ones. Yeah, off the top of my head, these are the ones. Probably Super Bowl. Love to do Super Bowl as well. Some stage, off time, review, like understanding all the mechanics, especially when they bring in all of the stages of. I mean, I'm sure it's been broken down many times, but like having a video account, like, first-hand account of that would be much fun, and entertaining content for a lot of professionals, right? It's like, honestly, my high expectations are the high expectations of my audience that essentially has seen everything and anything. So how do you surprise them? How do you make them excited about a video? Only to go, if I go to these, I know it. Because like whenever I've gone, even like the second video of CES, they're already like, oh, yeah, we've seen CES. It's just 150,000 people. And it's like literally some booths that are like, zip codes in Las Vegas. They're huge. They're like humongous, multi-million, dozens of millions of dollars invested for a booth that is going to be teared down the next day. So yeah, still people are like, yeah, meh. So that's the problem of operating in this industry, that people are like getting, they're like, yeah, whatever.
So basically the high stakes events where the investments are high or the access exclusivity is more difficult, I would suppose, right? When I hear you say the finals for the FIFA World Cup, the World Economic Forum, the Oscars, the Super Bowl, those are all events where somehow it seems like the moat that you initially tried to take away in terms of sense of belonging is one of those exclusivity stages that you need to climb onto or be able to have a ladder to get to in order to demonstrate what happens behind the scenes of those types of events and how they create that exclusive value. Does that contradict your own kind of philosophy of access and belonging? Or do you think as you get more experience in events and event reporting and journalism and maybe experiences, does eventism become like an extreme sport, right, where you go for bolder and crazier every time?
I think like we lack proper path in our industry, path of progression. So someone that gets in the industry, starts working in the events industry, what is their objective? They don't know. They don't know. And maybe like they're working in the events industry by chance because like they were in hospitality, right? Or like other ways of getting into the industry. It's not a chosen career. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes, there's people that are intentional, they do university. That's getting better. But I don't think we have an end goal. What is the event that I want to be at? And so my objective is to give an end goal, and show what it means to be at these big events. Still with if I look at FIFA World Cup or the Olympics or events like the Super Bowl, I would still look at what are brands doing in terms of activations. How are they showing up, for these huge mega investments? And so I think there's still going to be a lot of practical, immediately implementable takeaways. Even the smaller company that is like running a 10 by 10 at the next trade show, that sparked that idea on a smaller scale. If we try to conceptualize it and make it become MO of how we do things, then it's going to be valuable for everyone, or at least it's going to be aspirational, which actually we would love to have more aspiration. It's like, when you go out there, it's not that business events get a good rap. This is just like bad coffee and bad carpets mixed with boringness and like boredom rather. And looking at all of this, how does it make it sexy for people to work in events? And so, I feel like we need more. I'm not going to say that I'm the one that is going to give it to people, but definitely something that I have on the back of my mind when I go and do these videos that may seem elitist and just like, oh, Julius gets here, I'm never going to get here, right? I feel like I'm inspiring a lot of event creators that I've seen all of a sudden, even people that have been in the industry for a while, going around with cameras and doing their own take on things. Awesome, fantastic. It's not just about me. To be honest, I'm quite sure, knowing me, that I'm going to be pretty tired very soon of doing this, and I'm going to move to something else. It's just the way I am. That's why I jump from business to business and I start a new business, and I work with like a million different clients and stuff because I have to get myself, after being 20 years talking about these things, I'm sure you share some of that, Ruud. It's like, all right, okay, again. Are we really having that conversation again? So I have to keep myself entertained, otherwise I cannot entertain others.
Yeah. Interesting take on it. One of the obsessions we've been developing more and more around these types of events that you're talking about is really about the mechanics of value creation and being able to articulate the culture much more specifically, right? So if you have a way to document culture, a way to systematically measure it longitudinally over multiple events, and you see the deltas of change between the events, this is where I think a lot of the leadership that are looking to design future culture are currently, putting their focus. If I look at the clients that we're working with at the Event Design Collective, there's an obsession when, leadership changes or when the world changes, is in how you show up and how you belong. But mostly, what does that do to the culture of my organization, right? What does it do to the behaviors of the teams within our organization? What does it do to the conversations we're not having? Because sometimes you go to events to have conversations that you're not having whilst you're at the company, right? And the ability to put your finger on the actual taxonomy, the words, the content, the measurability of certain things, right? So we've now been codifying, and I think this is something that's quite kind of interesting in event culture analyses, right? Which we've developed now, where you can measure the culture of an event quite empirically, right? You can actually very specifically put labels and measuring sticks, which I think go beyond the ROI, the direct monetary ROI of an event, but really invite you to think about the way that things like risk and courage are measured, right? Or commercial gravity, or the power dynamic between the different stakeholders at a specific event, or based on the data and the data extraction, what's the tone and the sentiment and all the things that, when early social media came up, and, I remember we talked at length about these things back in the day when social media was just emerging, right, years ago. This ability to create the taxonomy, because it's capturable, right, and because you can now analyze it much vaster amounts of data, this becomes a very powerful driver of design, right? So
let me say something about that, Ruud, because this is an important reminder for anybody listening that maybe found this podcast, they haven't read the book yet, they haven't been engaged with getting certified with you. I stress this again and again. We have no commercial affiliation or anything. I referred hundreds of
we're just friends. It happens to be in the book.
Sometimes in this sea of non-disclosure agreements and non-commercial partnerships that I have, things that I can say, I cannot say, not to upset anybody. There's some exceptions that I make, and the event design movement, in a sense, is like one of those exceptions where, regardless of our relationship, I keep referring people to the cause, because when I get into some events as a consultant, where I'm brought in to accelerate sponsorship, accelerate registration, which are the hottest ones I'm working with in the past year and a half, so many projects on those, where there's only so much I can do. There's only so much, like, a very badly built product. You can do magic to sell it, but it's still going to be a badly built product. And so the product officers, the chief product officers of events, are event designers. Event design should be part, if you go a layer up, or maybe sometimes it's the same layer. I don't want to characterize this with event strategists, which I see sometimes even higher up there. Event design is the building block of event strategy, and I try to cover that in as many projects as I can. Sometimes it's out of scope, but I feel that whenever I go back into registration, I go back to that all the time. Can you build an event without a community, without a culture? Can you build an event can you sell an event without a community or culture? Can you sell an event without a proper design in place that reflects what your audience wants today, your personas want today? And so that gap, if you have that gap, if you don't have people within your team that are responsible and accountable for whether it's culture measurement over time in your events program, whether it's proper event design, whether it's thinking about attendees first and shaping journeys around it, well, then you're gonna have issues like losing $5-6 million of your event and not even knowing why. Your registration tracking 50% 6 weeks out. What are we gonna do, right? So sponsors not being interested in not renewing, NPS of minus 100. Okay, I've seen all of this. I've seen all of this from big companies that are sometimes aspirational within our industry that I work with, right? So, this is your sign. This is the sign that you need to get involved with this. And again, it goes back to, okay, get the book, but do something about it. Even if you read a chapter about it, make it change the way you do things, make it have an impact on the way you do things. It's not just like an exercise of reading or accumulating more information. And this matters even more today, where we're literally facing, I don't know if you read the letter that Dario Amodei wrote, CEO of Anthropic, 2 days ago. That is absolutely concerning, and it should be concerning for all of us. So he's the CEO of Anthropic, Claude, which is ChatGPT, ChatGPT competitor that is actually crushing ChatGPT right now because of how smart it is, right? And the applications of it. Claude Code, Claude Coworker, these are like they're becoming impressive for the most of us, even for the people that have been in technology for a while. Now, what he wrote in this letter is that in 2 years' time, we're going to have the equivalent of a Nobel laureate in terms of like our AI companion. So that poses incredible risks and really should make us rethink what we bring to the table here. What are we bringing to the table? And when I see people, and I started with this in 22, obviously being immediately in ChatGPT and doing courses and doing analysis and support for the community about AI and the use in events. Well, I've been calling it out, do not take whatever ChatGPT gives you and put it there. Do not have that mentality, because you're telling your boss, you can replace me with AI. This is what the message is that is coming around. If you're doing, taking, pasting, what do we need you for? To copy paste? So everybody should seriously rethink the way they're looking at events today and their contribution to an event. I feel that, and then having the strategy, having like a perspective, a framework that reflects what is happening today, because then we have a major shift. Like you're probably the only, I would say, chapter slash application of the event planning process that can stay over time. So we're thinking about design that is not necessarily tied to something, but events are changing beasts because they reflect the changes in people. And so some elements will stay the same, but a lot will change, a lot. And they're changing dramatically right now. And so staying in tune with what is happening today, understanding the strategic perspective about it, that's the only way we have to face this, because everything else, even like my consulting, I was thinking about it yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to be replaced. I'm going to be replaced very soon. It's like that realization. And like you're talking to me, I've like done research. I can immediately tell you, if you ask me, why are we doing this and not that? 10 reasons plus 5 pieces of research why. Well, that's going to be replaceable.
Yes.
So if I'm asking myself that question, and I have a lot of visibility and all of that, well, I think we should all seriously question what we're doing and literally take action today.
Yep. Well, the good thing about events is that the way they create value between people is through behavior change. And that being quite difficult for people, right? Changing your behavior is quite difficult, even if you know which direction you want it to change towards. The effect of people getting together in groups or in herds or in huddles or in conferences or in festivals or in, halftime shows, or it doesn't matter what it is, right? But the fact that when people herd together, changing their behavior becomes more influenceable, right? If you know what you're trying to influence. And I think the ability to articulate that and to be very creative with it over time has proven that it is probably the golden key to creating those smiles in the minds of real humans that will not be impressed by the next research report or by the top 10 recommendations of whatever it might be, right? And those elements in events, and the reason probably why you get on those uncomfortable planes regularly to travel halfway across the planet, or even within your own massive country where you live, you don't do that for fun. You do that because where you're headed and what you're contributing to and what you're observing fuels you, energizes you, gives you something that you would not find elsewhere, right? And so moving your body from one place to another, right? The drayage of people that unfortunately, it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of time. It costs a lot of effort. There's a lot of risk. There's all these things that are part of it. But our ability to create value and to provide return for that ROI you were talking about is by making people gel towards those things that they aspire to be part of, right? And you gave it a list of aspirational events that you are looking to go towards. So I'd love to reach back out to you in a couple of, oh, maybe next year, right? Let's not wait 2.5 years because the world changes so quickly. I'd like to invite you next year and see which one of those 10, or I don't know if you said 10, but I heard at least 5 or 6, which ones you have been invited to or you made it to, and to get that bird's eye view of that specific event, and then see if we can decode it from 2 angles. One is the personal visit of having seen it up close. And I would offer, purely out of curiosity, the translation and the cultural analysis of that event based on the behavioral observations of what's actually happening at the event. And I think this would be a leap in terms of being able to better craft, quantify, and celebrate progress over time, because that's what any leader is after, right? And then considering the amount of money they're spending on their events or in attending the events, you have to put those 2 things into perspective. And I think we now have the tool set to do it. And we have the structure to do it. And I'm very excited about that. It's something that we will be sharing with the world quite soon as well. There's already 12 pilot projects underway at this moment, but I won't talk about them yet. But this is something that's very exciting to see.
Give us something, Ruud. Give us
evergreen
something.
thinking, right? Evergreen thinking, sheet music will remain the same, but what you do with it changes over time, right? Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to see it. And obviously, I love everything that you're doing. I can see whenever in the team that I work with, there's a CED, I get like a little bit more relaxed, because I don't have to explain things. I don't have to tell them why, and so it makes me feel it's like I'm working with a CMP, right? To a certain extent for other aspects, right? Yeah. That they have some aspects taken care of because it shows an interest, or a DES as well, right? They're interested in, it's just like not necessarily sometimes what they gain with some of these programs, but like more their attitude, right? They're
curiosity to learn, right? To
immediately evident from it makes, like, if you're a leader and you're listening to this, those 3 words after a name on LinkedIn, DES, CMP, CED, and CM.
And for those of you that are not familiar with these weird kind of acronyms, CMP is a certified meeting professional, DES is a digital event strategist, and then CED is the certified event designer designation, right? So these are professional designations that people in the industry take the effort of going through amidst all the events that they try to produce, design, or put together. And it shows the commitment of those that are willing to learn beyond the length of their own kind of regular performance. And I'm glad that doesn't go unnoticed, right? So
no, it doesn't. Like, I can tell you the end, like the other end of it, when I'm called into teams to assess their performance, sometimes, unfortunately make decisions about that team, I can see the delta is so huge because it shows willingness to learn, intention on how they're doing things, and critical ability, right? Ability to be critical about the decisions, which again, in the AI age, is everything. The ability to call a strategy instead of another. That's it. Because eventually that's like, we're going to be curators, editors of stuff that AI recommends to us for the most part. And so, which becomes even like way more complex than going through the process of like forging an opinion. Sometimes you will have to make opinions based on like quick things that are shown to you. And so that critical ability right now makes a whole lot of difference. And like, it's like, for project managers, I've experienced it myself, having someone in my team that it's a PMP, project manager, something professional, something like that, certification. Humongous difference in terms of their ability to do project management. So I think certifications matter, and I protect them as much as I can not all certifications are equal as well. I can tell you also that some are better than others, and you can tell, if they gave them, they actually gave the tools to someone or not. And I feel that makes a huge difference. So thank you for doing that and for continuing to pushing the boundary. I know
we're pushing hard. We're going into cohort 60. We've trained over 1,000 people to become certified event designers. Our next stop is going to be in Malaysia and Singapore next month. Also launching a new program, Certified Trusted Advisor, which we're bringing first to Asia Pacific. The curiosity of people there is extreme and extremely gratifying to see that level of curiosity and willingness to develop, right? Something I think that in other parts of the world should be envious as to the curiosity and learning abilities and willingness of people in very specific areas of the world. So that's super exciting, and I'm excited for all the stuff that you're doing, Julius. We're gonna obviously meet again at probably at IMEX and maybe at IBTM and other places. We keep bumping into each other, and we have conversations off mic and off camera, which people can only guess what those are about.
Well, can you imagine?
I'm glad we got you locked up for these 55 minutes that we got to hang out together. Thank you so much, all the way from the events capital of the world in Las Vegas, I think today, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No comment.
And the ability to kind of synthesize and look at things through a certain lens, I always appreciate. And whenever something comes out that Julius publishes in any of the channels, you can be guaranteed of a deluge of conversations, discussions, and comments and opinions, and which is a talent in itself, right? To spark conversations is one of the most important gifts that I think you've brought to the events industry. So thank you for doing that. Keep doing that, right? Don't stop doing that, because I think we need it. We need it very much so, especially in the current day and age. And with the horizon of change that you're looking at, of one of those events maybe that hits your radar, let's re-team up on doing that culture event analysis together, which is very painless and very, how would I say that? Yeah, it's little effort, but a massive benchmarking scaffolding to designing better events over time and into the future. So I'm excited to share that with you and the people that you work with as well, and see how that might help in the future.
Thank you, Ruud. This is like the probably second, third podcast that I do in a year. I'm not doing a lot of podcasts anymore, mostly because I get the same questions over and over again. So it's always a pleasure to be with you and to be intellectually challenged by your questions and keep changing behaviors of attendees. So that's what we want. And a lot of events don't even know that they need to change behaviors. Otherwise, they're going to be a failure to begin with. So keep preaching a good word with your community. Congratulations for cohort 60. I'm looking forward for cohort 120 very quickly. And a big hug to all of your community that is very near and dear to me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Julius. And until we see each other very soon again, and I'm going to send out an invite for next year for us to regather and look back at this conversation and see where it brought us.
All right, man.
Goodbye for now.
Much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been hanging out backstage on Design to Change Designer Conversations. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and share conversations online using hashtag #DesignToChange and hashtag #EventCanvas. Want more thought-provoking content like this? Visit designtochange.online to purchase your copy of Design to Change, elevating your abilities to look and act beyond the now. Don't forget, it's more than just a book. Experience a hard copy, audio format, video format, and even augmented reality. Experience it in your style and format. Tune into our next episodes and hear from more designers and change makers. Until then, we look forward to our next conversation.